Forever Young is a song considered characteristic of the early 1980s, a song that came out during the Soviet Union's last full decade existing, while also being, arguably, its most turbulent decade. This is mainly because of the fact that it was a seminal decade in the Cold War. On the other side of the aisle, the excitingly jingoistic Ronald Reagan had ascended to the ranks of presidency within the United States after a decisive electoral victory in 1980. Combine these two factors and you have the fear of nuclear war-caused Holocaust ramped up to 11. This fear was very pervasive in the collective public consciousness of the world at the time. The song Forever Young by the band Alphaville condenses these feelings of fear, its chorus conveying a strong sense of anxiety, questioning, and trying to decide between the choice of living forever with the constant threat of nuclear holocaust looming over the world, or the alternative to that, which is not living. It's no surprise that this song was made by a band native to a Germany that was divided via East and West, aka the Communist Bloc and the Capitalist Bloc, both harboring tactically placed nuclear missiles. But Germans weren't the only people with a dangerously close, or even the closest relationship with nuclear weapons, and the fallout that would happen after their usage. No, that would go to Japan, the only country to have ever had a nuclear weapon used against it. The 1980s weren't too far away from the 1940s time-wise, so the wound from this attack would still be very fresh, meaning the anxiety probably would have been worse for the Japanese. And we see Japanese media itself try to capture those feelings. The almost quintessential example of this is Metal Gear, of course. Released on July 13th, 1987, created by Hideo Kojima, it was a game that would eventually spawn about a whole series that would later be called Metal Gear Solid, a series whose whole premise revolves around the prevention of nuclear missiles being launched by different iterations of a mechanism called Metal Gear. Literally, in almost every Metal Gear game, that's the initial premise. Infiltrate insert facility here, and make sure you can prevent each of the members of insert terrorist group here within the facility from utilizing their nuclear MacGuffin. In Metal Gear Solid 1, it was Foxhound. In Metal Gear Solid 2, it was Dead Cell and Solid Snake. In Metal Gear Solid 3, it was Volgin and the Cobra unit. All the other games are a little bit more convoluted, but they still involve this very plot point. Nonetheless, the point I'm making is that the Metal Gear series basically revolves around your fear of nuclear weapons and the fallout that would materialize if they were ever used again. At least that's a huge part of what this series is. There's a particular scene in Metal Gear Solid 1 that I think about a lot. I'll play you a little bit of it.
You need to find Hal Emmerich, one of my employees.
Who's that?
The team leader of the Metal Gear Rex project. A genius at engineering, but a little bit of an oddball. If there's anyone who can figure out how to stop Metal Gear from launching, it's him.
What if he can't come up with anything?
You'll have to destroy it. Emmerich knows how to destroy Metal Gear.
Where is this Emmerich?
Well, he's probably being held somewhere in the nuclear warhead storage building. It's north from here. That's where he worked.
I understand, but why Metal Gear? The nuclear age ended with the turn of the millennium.
Oh, you're wrong. The threat of nuclear war isn't gone. In fact, it's greater than it's ever been.
Hideo Kojima is truly the modern-day Nostradamus, isn't he? Jokes aside, what that character just said very much rings true for the real world. Back in '99, everyone thought that the age of the nuclear arms race was over. It had been 8 years since the Soviet Union collapsed. The entire Eastern Bloc was dismantled, and all of the countries that were in it privatized their economies. It was pretty clear to most of the world that capitalism won the Cold War, not to mention all the rights that were gained for marginalized populations across the Western world in the decades prior to the 90s, which gave credence to the idea that we would live in a society where racism and sexism don't exist anymore. And for everyone living in the Western world at the time, the future was looking very, very bright, and the atmosphere was very optimistic. But I think given the current state of the Western world right now, it's very hard to say that they were right. And to anyone who's actually knowledgeable on these topics, that's no surprise whatsoever. I think it's pretty clear that they were all wrong to be optimistic. and Metal Gear Solid makes sure we're reminded of that fact way before they even come to that conclusion. All along, Metal Gear Solid was telling us that the nuclear age wasn't over.
In other words, there's plenty of available nuclear material and scientists for making a bomb. We live in an age when any small country can have a nuclear weapons program.
What about the other superpowers?
Russia and China still maintain a significant nuclear presence. Complete nuclear disarmament is an impossibility. To maintain our own policy of deterrence, we need a weapon of overwhelming power.
Take Dr. Hal Emmerich, for example. Emmerich wanted to use science to help mankind, but what he didn't realize was that the very project he was working on had the pretense of defense, quote-unquote. He never asked himself what the word defense really meant in this context.
I need information about Metal Gear.
Huh? Metal Gear?
Yeah. What's Metal Gear really designed for?
It's a mobile TMD. It's designed to shoot down nuclear missiles. Only for defensive purposes, of course.
Fire! I already know that Metal Gear is nothing but a nuclear-equipped walking deathmobile.
Nuclear? What are you talking about?
The terrorists are planning to use Metal Gear to launch a nuclear missile. You telling me you didn't know?
They're gonna put a dismantled warhead into Metal Gear's TMD missile module?
Wrong. From the beginning, the purpose of this exercise was to test Metal Gear's nuclear launch capability using a dummy nuclear warhead. The terrorists are just continuing the work you started.
No, you're wrong.
I heard it directly from your boss, Baker.
No. A nuclear missile on Rex?
So you really didn't know?
He never questioned who exactly they're defending themselves against with this so-called defense weapon. As Solid Snake said in the scene with Baker, the nuclear age was supposed to end with the beginning of the new millennium. So with that in mind, why would a defense contractor like Armstech need to develop a new defense weapon? There isn't a Cold War to be fought anymore. The answer is pretty obvious. Power and profit. War is a very profitable industry, so there's no way it was just gonna stop because the so-called Cold War was supposedly over. Emmerich's ignorance is reflective of the false sentiments that were pervasive in Western society in the 90s, especially the late 90s when Metal Gear Solid 1 was released. What people like Emmerich didn't know was why wars were fought in the first place, at least in the 20th century. In Otacon's case, his ignorance was damn near catastrophic. I mean, he literally designed Metal Gear Rex. It didn't matter that the communist bloc didn't exist anymore. That was only one part of a much larger reason as to why the nuclear arms race started in the first place. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the main reason why in both the real world and the world of Metal Gear Solid, the high likelihood of nuclear war remains.
If the terrorists launched that thing... Damn! Damn! I'm such a fool. It's all my fault. The truth is, my grandfather was part of the Manhattan Project. He suffered with the guilt for the rest of his life. And my father, he was born on August 6th, 1945.
The day of the Hiroshima bomb. God's got a sense of humor, all right.
3 generations of Emmerich men. We must have the curse of nuclear weapons written into our DNA.
We live in a sad age. Imperialism, totalitarianism, perestroika. 20th century Russia has had its share of problems, but at least they had an ideology.
About 4 years ago, The Guardian, a British news publication, published an article with the headline, Cold War-era nuclear weapon, $100 billion plan to build new nuclear missile sparks concern. Here's a few passages from the article itself. The US is building a new $100 billion nuclear missile based on a set of flawed and outdated assumptions, a new report by the Federation of American Scientists said. The report, due to be published next week, will argue the planned ground-basic strategic deterrent is being driven by intense industry lobbying lobbying by politicians from states that will benefit the most from it economically, rather than a clear assessment of the purpose of the new intercontinental ballistic missiles. The current estimate is that the basic acquisition costs of the GBSD will be $100 billion, while the total cost of building, operating, and maintaining it over its projected lifespan to 2075 is projected as $264 billion. That was only 4 years ago. Can you imagine what's in store right now, whenever you're watching this, dear viewer? I'm scared, man. The threat of nuclear war, climate change, imperialism, the future ain't looking bright. Every single day of our lives, the very real possibility of a nuclear apocalypse prevails. World War III could literally happen tomorrow. I guess you could say that climate change is at least incremental in its catastrophic impact on the world, but a lot of people that are being impacted by climate change right now would beg to differ. Look up climate refugees. You might learn something new today. My main point is that we are literally barreling towards complete collapse, and these rich motherfuckers know that. These goddamn defense contractors know that. These private military companies know that. The fucking oil industry knows that. Not only do they know that, but they also know that it's preventable. They know that the world doesn't have to be this way. And that's not even the most frustrating part. That would be the fact that neither I nor you can do anything about it. Individuals have no way of stopping humanity's descent into hell. A mass collective of the average person definitely does, but right now that's not on the table. So what do we do in the meantime? I think Solid Snake has an answer.
Until today, I've lived only for myself. Survival has been the only thing I cared about in my life.
That's not just you. That's how everyone is.
I only felt truly alive when I was staring death in the face. I don't know. Maybe it's written into my genes.
What about now?
I want to enjoy life. I really do. How about you, Otacon?
Me? I feel like a new man.
So what are you gonna do? Continue your research?
No, I'm finished with science. I'm interested in human psychology now.
Sounds good.
The whole reason I got into science in the first place was because I was no good with people. I was scared of them. I was scared of life. I thought that I could never understand them because they're so illogical. But I finally learned how to like people. I'm not afraid anymore.
Well, you and I are more alike than I thought.
I'm just tired of always being a spectator in life. I'm ready to live. I'm gonna stand on my own 2 feet. I'm not gonna hide anymore.
You giving up your stealth camo?
Huh? Oh yeah. You can have it. So, this is where we say goodbye to our loves as well. Want me to drive?
No thanks. I'd rather do it myself.
No problem. Where to, Snake?
My real name is David, Otacon.
I'm Hal, Dave.
Oh, that's right. Hal. Hal and Dave. That's a good one. Maybe we should take a trip to Jupiter.
So where you going, Dave?
I think it's time for me to look for a new path in life.
A new path?
A new purpose.
Will you find it?
I'll find it. I know I'll find it.
All I can do right now is live life to the fullest. Live for myself and those around me. Focus on the things that make me happy in this horrible, dystopic world we live in. A world not too dissimilar to the world of Metal Gear. There's no point in thinking about something that's completely out of your control. But there are still many parts of an individual's life that they themselves control solely. So don't wallow in depression on the r/collapse subreddit or something along those lines. There's still a lot to be optimistic about, and it is possible for us to live in a better world. We just gotta work towards that, and wallowing in depression because of the fear of nuclear war isn't the way to go. Regarding nuclear war specifically, all you can do is hope for the best. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then you'll recognize that you're not wasting your time trying to fulfill the goals you have in life. And even if you are, what's the alternative? Doomerism? Nah, personally, that's not my speed. That's not to say it'll be easy, but you can always try like Solid Snake did at the end of Metal Gear Solid 1. Which ultimately didn't work out because Metal Gear Solid 2 exists, but Metal Gear Solid 4 also exists, and at the end of that game, he's given the same advice that Naomi gave him in Metal Gear Solid 1.
But you have been given freedom. Freedom to be outside. You are nobody's tool now. No one's toy. You are no longer a prisoner of fate. You are no longer a seed of war. Oh, it's time for you to see the outside world with your own eyes. Your body and your soul are your own. Forget about us. Live for yourself.
By none other than his father. And he actually takes the advice to heart this time. If old Solid Snake can do it, then you definitely can too. I mean, he's a fictional video game character, but you get my point. It's still possible. Let's all make the best out of an extremely dire situation, because I know that's what I'm gonna do.